What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to talk about the 3 albums, 2 full, 1 EP, of the Claypool Lennon Delirium. A band that was Les Claypool of Primus, Sean Lennon of Ghost of the Saber-Toothed Tiger, I think that was it. I think he played with Dinosaur Jr., got a couple solo albums, happens to be the son of a man named John Lennon, who was in this little band called the Beatles. So they got together about 8 years ago now, put together an album, toured. I saw that great tour, put together an EP, dropped another album about a year before the pandemic, caught them again that year. Good show. And yeah, haven't done anything since, but hopefully they will. But anyways, I do this thing every year, or every 2 years. I combine a couple letters together where I devote a month to each letter of the alphabet, A, B, C. Those are the letters of the alphabet. Started over this year. So January was A, the B, C. March was C. And even though we're now in May, what I try to do is during that month, I have a couple days out of the year where like if I purposely will go to my album collection and like go through, in April, it was D's, albums that I haven't listened to in a long time and try to revisit those. In March, I revisited this. It had only been a couple years, but I wanted to listen to them again. And so they've been kind of in my rotation recently. So I was like, hey, let's do a short video on them because it's really good. Lennon referred to it as PROGADELIC. There are definite elements of prog, definite psychedelic energy, kind of a pop psychedelic energy. Claypool is very much bringing Primus energy, but it's subdued, just sometimes the doon, like just that bass strum that he does, it just keeps the momentum going. Some like nice proggy little jams thrown in some songs. Some Primus energy balanced with some Sean Lennon, the second half of the Beatles psych pop energy. A lot of the melodies that he drops are melodies that I feel like you could find on like Magical Mystery Tour or Yellow Submarine or even Abbey Road. A lot of like things remind me of Because, just that really awesome psych floatiness. And the two of them, I don't want to say complement each other because I think they're both full entities. I think Les has a full identity, doesn't need help. Lennon has this full identity, doesn't need help, but they supplement each other well. And the harmonies that Lennon brings laid over the funky bass that Claypool brings, it's a perfect mix. It's definitely a little subdued. It's definitely a little laid back, but it's still very intense. There are still some kind of jammy moments. Lennon plays great guitar. He's not a really indulgent guitar player, but he's got tasty licks. Everything he plays just serves the song so well. Some great mellotron, some great just awesome sounds on both of these albums. Really good psych albums. And they have... I know one last thing before I get to the albums. I know they have, for spiciness, they have the, I always say it wrong, the Scoville scale, right? Which is like your heat level, right? Of a chili pepper. And I've always thought that now that certain things are legalized and people can legally indulge and listen to music in ways that prior to the last couple of years were not legal. There should be some kind of scale for that about, hey, where does this album fall on the legal recreational chemistry scale? And I would say that the Claypool Lennon Delirium, if there were such a scale of like, legalized recreational chemistry, it's high up on the list of things you want to listen to. Like just whether you're driving or chilling or engaging or sitting and just focusing, there's some good stuff, man. There's some good, tasty stuff. All right, 3 albums. I'm just going to go through them. I'm not going to drop a list at the end because there's only 3. I think they're all worth checking out, but this is the way I would rank them. That's all I got. Oh, Zappa connection. Claypool was in a Zappa cover band back in Oakland, Berkeley, Bay Area, back in late 80s, early 90s. Lennon, John Lennon, Beatles, all bunch of connections with Zappa. Zappa covered their songs. Did an album cover parody, satire, tribute to them, whatever. Yeah. All right. On to number 3. Number 3 is Lime and Limpid Green, which happens to be the first line of Astronomy Domine, Pink Floyd's opening track off their debut album, which is the opening track off this covers album, an EP. It's only 4 songs, but they're good. This came out after their first tour on their first album. And on that first tour, they did play, when I saw them play, they played Astronomy Domine, the Pink Floyd cover. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought it stayed true to the song, but at the same time felt like a Claypool Lennon, like it felt lived in. It felt like they knew this song. It felt like there was like both respect for the song, but a willingness to like put a little bit of themselves in it. So when this came out, it was actually kind of, oh, cool. I want to hear their studio version of this. Pretty awesome, pretty good. It's a really nicely fleshed out, fully formed, updated, better. I mean, we're in like, decades later when they're doing this, but they're still doing it with that same sort of respect and energy, and not trying to almost recreate the same mood, but in a little bit of their own style. And you have Les Claypool on bass, which no slack to Roger Waters, but awesome cover opener. You get Boris the Spider, which is kind of straightforward, but still it's Boris the Spider. You get A Chord of the Crimson King, which the middle section of that, when it goes into the weird, almost like Baroque pop art weirdness part, that proggy weirdness, but light and classical, and that whole weirdness, that to me is like, oh, were they listening to this album together and they were like, hey, let's make a band in which almost all of their jams are inspired by that middle jam in The Chord of the Crimson King. Like, that's the part. The whoa opening in any part. No. That's not Claypool Lennon. That middle part with those intricate lines, but with Claypool on bass and Lennon then dropping some really cool melodic guitar solos, that to me is almost the essence of what this band is. Astronomy flirts with it, but I don't think they get as heavy. Unfortunately, they don't get that heavy often enough to really be an astronomy band, but that middle part of Court, yeah, I feel that. And that's great. And then the 4th song, awesome, out of nowhere choice, Satori 1. I think it's just called Satori, but it is part 1 on the original album from the Flower Traveling Band. I think there's 5 parts on that original album, right? 6. But yeah, great early 70s psych band that was absolutely fantastic. How many Satoris are there? 5 or 6? I think there's 5, right? But yeah, if you have not checked out Satori, 5, check that album out. That is fantastic. This is a pretty straightforward cover. Again, it just sounds maybe a little bit cleaner than the original, but it's got good energy and it's a great song selection. So yeah, 4 songs, great listen. I don't think there's anything bad with it, but it's a cover album, so I got to knock it to number 3. But anyways, yeah, that's Lime and Limpid Green. Number 2 is their debut album, which came out in 2016, The Monolith of Phobos. The opening track is The Monolith of Phobos, and I think it sets up expectations for this band perfectly. It's definitely not as low-key. The band is not as low-key and non-eventful as the opening track, but the opening track takes a full minute and a half before we get to the first opening bass line where the song actually starts. We got a minute 20 plus of weird noises, a lot of scraping of strings and just atmospheric kind of it sounds like space. It sounds like we're landing on Mars. Then once the song starts, we're slowly exiting the spacecraft to go investigate the monolith. It's got this eerie, really kind of spacey vibe, but not like a space prog vibe or not like a weird funky echoes vibe, but just weird. We're here, we're comfortable, we're exploring it, but it's space, so it's still kind of creepy. And over the course of the 4.5 minutes, really nothing happens in the song. I mean, there's lyrics, super low key, kind of eerie. It's great vibe, great tone on that scale of whatever it is, high on the scale, great headphone song. But it kind of doesn't peak. It doesn't deliver any sort of punch I don't know. I like it. It's yeah, we got this vibe. This is what we're doing, man. We don't need to go anywhere. But then the album does go places and it gets better. And then the next songs, which are a 1 and 2, Cricket in the Genie Movement 1, and then Cricket in the Genie Movement 2, really pick up the energy. You got some nice upbeat sort of Primus groove coming in. I like the lyrics on both their albums, the original ones. they're your typical Primus Claypool telling stories with characters that are quirky and kind of weird. Lennon kind of doing the same thing. A lot of stuff sort of addressing modern woes and the ills of modern society. Sometimes they're cliched. Sometimes they kind of contradict each other. Sometimes you're not really sure what the purpose is, but I think they're having fun. And I like the lyrics, and there's some good lines in there. But the Cricket and the Genie, I think Cricket is the person, and somebody gives him a pill, a bottle. He's not feeling good, and somebody gives him like a prescription pills. It's like an anti-prescription medicine type double song. I always think of Cricket from It's Always Sunny when I hear this, because this person ends up buying a gun at the end, which I think Cricket ended up buying a gun at one point. Spoiler alert. But yeah, reminds me of Cricket. So it's a two-part. In the second part, you get the first part, which is a little more Primus funky, and then the second part goes into this like really low-key, spacey sort of bass-driven little groove, and then you get this line, "You ought to try it, you really ought to try it," just kind of maybe like the devil on your shoulder urging you to do something you shouldn't do. But it's got a nice vibe to it. The guitar gets heavy towards the end, and yeah, it just builds and simmers, and nice just vibe. Mr. Right, one of those characters that, you know, Claypool develops. This guy, of course, he's not Mr. Right. He's Mr. Wrong in all the ways. He's like an Aqualung type character. He's sitting on a park bench, and he's not up to good. He's not up to any good, this guy. Really nice keyboards. Spacey keyboards in. The bass playing on this is ridiculous, and there is just this, it's driven by the bass, and there's this like run that Claypool repeats over and over that is just catchy as H. It's fantastic. Absolutely really good song, even though the lyrics are a little bit weird. It's got this creep in motif that is kind of gets stuck in your brain. We have Breath of a Salesman we have Boomerang Baby, which is next, which is one of those slow burners that's about being alive in modern society. Kind of a good song. And the first part of it is really just Lennon on the guitar. This is a Sean-dominated piece, and it's really nice. Just he's doing a lot, and it's just guitar, just kind of atmosphere, kind of a low-key vibe, kind of slinky. And then we get like layers of like subtle psychness just piled on top. Another one of those slow simmering, really good songs. Breath of a Salesman's like just a Primus stomp groove. Captain Lariat, kind of a longer song, weirder, a little more low key, a lot of prog psych energy. Very Claypool driven. And then a couple times throughout the song, Lennon comes in with this melody and these little pockets of like psych pop bliss, and it's just the contrast between the two works so perfectly. It's exactly what you kind of need to dilute the Claypool intensity. America, it's about America, kind of a rant against America, kind of the most song on here. Oxycontin Girl, another, we got a message about somebody. One of those, just kind of, we're kind of repeating things here. I don't think the second half of this album is as inspired as the first half. Bubbles Burst is, I think, about Bubbles the Chimp, Michael Jackson's. Really nice guitar solo at the end of this. This has some definite Because the World vibe during some of the vocals. And then we close out with There's No Underwear in Space, which is this nice, weird instrumental that kind of echoes the weird way we creeped in earlier on the album. Yeah, I really like this album. I think the first half is stronger than the second. Anytime Lennon solos, it's always tasty, it's always good. Claypool is very dominant, but also in some extent kind of restrained. In some that's not the word. I'm lacking words right now. But he's a little restrained, but at the same time not. So I don't know. If you're a Primus fan, I think you might know what I mean. But I really enjoy this album. But it can't touch the one that's number one on this list, their second album. And my number one favorite, Claypool Lennon Delirium, I always want to say Lennon first, is their final. Unfortunately, at this point, maybe there will be another one, South of Reality, came out in 2019. I think it's a fantastic album. And I think some of the songs are a little bit longer and feel a little more, maybe not epic-y, but maybe feel like you go through a little more of a journey from start to finish. And they're developed really nicely, some kind of neat lyrical topics. Just a really good album. Some really good keyboard work on here. The previous two albums, I think both of them were just Les and Sean doing all the instruments. There is an extra drummer and a couple voices on this one. Only the drummer appears on 3 songs, but for the most part, those guys are playing all the music. This one opens up with Little Fishes, which is you get a whole bunch of backward masking stuff, and then we kind of low key build up into like a Baroque poppy type thing. This is a Sean Lennon song. No, it's not a Sean Lennon song. This is a Les Claypool song. And then after that Baroque poppiness, we kind of up a level and things get a little bit more intense. And there's this repeated like motif of "Gone are the days," and then Les drops like a quirky little thing like, you know, when things about gender fluidity, things about hooking up online, all these other things. He's all over the map about things that are gone. But it's kind of interesting, and there's some catchy little lines in there. My favorite being, I had to write it down, "When will Ben Kenobi come and saber it away?" See, doesn't mean anything. It's all kind of nonsense. But kind of fun. Nice little jam at the end, some really good guitar playing. What might be, I don't know, there's a couple things that I think are just like centerpiece songs. Blood and Rockets, another 2-movement song. This is about what astrophysicist, rocketeer, I don't know what he was. Jack Parsons, who then became like a hardcore occultist. So this is kind of about him. And it kind of goes through a lot of different things. It's got this kind of really nice groove in the beginning, and there's this guitar line in the back that reminds me of like a Modest Mouse, like Moon in Antarctica type vibe, just kind of lonely and desolate, and maybe it's meant to evoke the moon, the Jack Parsons thing, I don't know. But it has a very mini epic feel about it. And the first part kind of sets up the story, and the second part, the To the Moon part, we get really chill and really introspective and really down there. And then this kind of slowly evolves into the coda of the song. So really nice journey, really nice Sean Lennon writing, really nice, just really good song. South of Reality, it's actually south of totality because it's about the eclipse. Apparently, they were near a total eclipse back in like 2018 or 19. They had to write about it. Really nice galloping intro, you know, your typical galloping Primus bass thing. Feels there's some like Police ska that sneaks in there for a short little while. But this is like a really funky, weird Claypool number with some fantastic funky keyboard work in it. Boriska, beautiful. Just all over the map also. This a cappella, almost Beatlesque opening, quickly going into some like percolating bass, this nice steady drive, lots of doses of Lennon psych pop in this. It's about an alien who comes down to Earth. Kind of some really sweet vocals contrasting with music that isn't quite as comfortable. But there's a really nice sort of proggy middle in which there's like Richard Wright-esque keyboards just kind of floating over the whole thing. Perfect lyrical song to drop it, perfect vibe. And then we get a nice guitar solo in there, some strings. I don't know if they're real strings or synth strings, but some kind of string type stuff comes in there. A really complete song. Next is Easily Charmed by Fools, which almost immediately comes across as the most poppy, kind of primacy poppy rock song on here. But then when you get to the middle, it almost like you get the same sort of groove, but it seems to be going underground. It just seems to like, it's not losing momentum, but it's just like it's like submerging or something, and you're just like you're being drawn down, and it's not as upbeat as it used to be. And then it goes back to being upbeat, and then the end of the song goes into like this acoustic outro that just out of nowhere just kind of fades off the song. And probably what should have been the least successful song on here, because the Easily Charmed by Fools is just kind of, it's catchy, but it's not, I don't know, it's lacking something. But then they completely save it by throwing in these random prog elements. Amethyst Realm, 8 minutes of just awesome progadelic music. The line, "I will meet you in hell, Amethyst Realm." Really cool. Some nice bass playing in here that's a little bit different than the other stuff. Really low key, nice guitar solo jam in it. Awesome spacey synth keys. Like they're throwing everything in the Amethyst Realm. Really good, slow, bubbling tension that just kind of seeps throughout the entire 8 minutes. To Toady Man's Hours is probably just your like quick, upbeat, quirky Primus character-driven song. Another one that's maybe a little bit of a, I'm not gonna say a throwaway, but like light, fillerish. And then you get Cricket. We revisit Cricket to see how Cricket's doing after the last album. And the two songs are called Ask Your Doctor and Side Effects. Side Effects start with a P because they're psychedelic, I would imagine. Really great slinky groove in the beginning for the first one. The second part gets a lot more noisier, a lot more psychier, jammy, kind of eclectic. There's an acoustic guitar outro that reappears on this. Some like whispering, like almost like you're going crazy and you're hearing voices type thing to end it, which I think fits with the whole Cricket Chronicles. And then we close out the album with Like Fleas. We are the fleas. And one day Mother Nature, Mother Earth, they may just flick us off their back because they're annoyed with us. Yeah, it's their last statement about humanity in modern day society. We are the fleas. Yeah, kind of ballady, but also kind of a low key funk pop thing. Not ending on an upbeat message, but a good song. I really like this album. I think it's got a great flow. 47-minute song. Nothing needs to be cut. Just, it's one of those, this album, both albums, I think the first time I heard them, I was like, I wanted more of a jam. I wanted them to go further out there. I wanted them to really like delve into the psychness of it all. Not necessarily the progness, but like the psychness and just get weird. And the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, that's infused in almost every second of every note. And you just have to appreciate the stuff that doesn't feel like it. And I've really grown to love this album. But yeah, that's my number one. I really think you should check it out. And that's all I got. The order was EP, first album, second album, from bottom to top. Get all of them. I think they're all listenable. I think they're all really good. I think progadelic is a good term, though it's not too incredibly prog. Definitely more delic. A lot of pop, Beatles-esque stuff. I don't know. I think they're really good listens. And they were really good live. The last time I saw them on the tour for their second album, they did perform all 4 of the covers that were on the cover album. So that had become a part of the repertoire. And they did it well. They did a couple Primus songs in there too. Southbound Pachyderm was one of them. One other one, I can't remember. But yeah, good band. And I think Sean Lennon, he's a really good guitar player, but he's restrained, but he's got really sharp, I think, catchy melodic ideas that work well within a song. I'd love to see him stretch out more. Claypool's a little restrained. I think if there's anything that I have friends that kind of bother them, it's Claypool's affectation in his singing voice sometimes, but I like it. Anyways, check these out. Let me know if you have checked those out, all those kind of things. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and go listen to these and let me know if they're any good. I think they're great, but let me know what you think. Or if you already have, let me know. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace.